Hello, Blake Rudis here with Everyday HDR and HDRinsider.com, and today I'm going to show you how to make ethereal kind of almost dreamlike backgrounds like you see here, these trees, and then also in this one with the cityscape in the background, and then we're going to do it right here on this photograph. Here's the before and here's the after. It's very subtle, but very effective. All right, so what I want to do is show you how to get this kind of ethereal kind of background where it almost looks like it could be real, but then again, it almost looks like it could be a painting. So here I used it in the background in these trees on this photograph. I also used it on this photograph in the background here for the cityscape. It's very subtle, but it's very effective. So what we need to do is actually duplicate the background first, and we're going to go to Filter, Topaz Labs, and Topaz Impression. Now you have to have Topaz Impression to do it the way that I do it. You might be able to use some other filters in Photoshop to get the same effect, but I feel like Topaz Impression is probably the best way to get this atmospheric effect. And there are a lot of different presets you can use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the painting section, and I'm going to scroll down to the one that says Oil Glaze by Blake Rudis. So here is the oil glaze effect that I like. Now, this is an oil glaze effect that I do like if I'm using Topaz Impression for the all over photograph. So if I'm going to use this to make an effect of the entire image, I might use this oil glaze. But if I'm going to use it for this subtle effect, I'm going to go into the oil glaze settings. I'm going to increase the brush size a slight bit and reduce the paint volume so that there's a lot less strokes happening here, and you actually start to see more of that background come into place. The paint opacity, if we bring that up, we're going to see many more of those paint strokes in place, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to bring that paint opacity down a little bit. That's also going to help give this more of a ethereal kind of feel in the background there. The stroke width, let's bring that up and see what happens. Sometimes that helps. Let's bring it down. As you bring the stroke width down, those strokes are going to get smaller and smaller and smaller and actually probably look more like strokes. So let's bring the stroke width up a little bit, and then we'll bring the length down and see what happens there. And that looks pretty good there. Now, what you're going to see here also is the spill and the smudge. I'm actually going to bring the smudge up. It actually gives it more of a swirly, kind of like you took your finger and you rubbed it or smeared it into the charcoal there in the background, or if you're using paints or pastels or something and kind of smeared it around. Now down here under the hue settings, by default that oil glaze is going to ramp up the saturation in the blue, so let's bring that down. And then let's also do that in the aqua, bring that down a little bit too. So now we have, here's the before, here's the after. And you can save this. You can save this as maybe, we'll call this ethereal background. You can call it whatever you want. And we'll save that in the painting and the all effects and press save. So now if you ever need to use this again, you just go right to that setting, that preset that you've already built, and you're good to go. So there are some things that we need to do to this photograph in order to make it look like it fits in place there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a mask on here, and I'm going to paint with black on this mask. And as I paint with black, stuff starts to disappear. Now I'm using a Wacom tablet. I really do enjoy this Wacom tablet quite a bit. And I'm going to just use a big brush until I get to the edges. And then once you get to the edges, it's a good idea to press the / key, which is right next to your right bracket key, which is going to show us what this mask looks like. We can also press Alt or Option and click on that mask, and it will show us everywhere that we are painting. And obviously I missed some big spots here, so let me take those away. And then I'll press Alt or Option again and click on that, and then press that / key to make it red. Now the red is just a haze, that haze effect that shows you kind of what it is that you're working on or what it is that you're affecting. It doesn't mean that we're painting with red. It's just a way to show us visually what we are affecting in this image. So I can see here that I don't quite have this up here. So I can make my brush size smaller. I'll switch that, keep that on black, and just paint right up to the edge of these trees. It's okay if I get the tops of the trees in there a little bit, that's fine. And I'll do that right along the edge of this water here. And if I get some of that background in there, I can just press X, which will switch between black and white on the fly for me. And I can just kind of glaze over that just a little bit. So now when I press the / key, you see that we still have all of our foreground elements protected as we did before. But if we look at our mask here, it's only for the sky. Okay, so we only want that effect to affect the sky. Now, this really looks like a painted background. So how can we fix that? Well, there's many things that we can do. We can drop the opacity a little bit to let some of that background seep through. Now, we still have that kind of semi-painted effect. It's going to give us that kind of blurring, hazing effect, this atmospheric effect that we're looking for. Or I can also go into the blending options. I can double click right here and I can use the blend if options. And the blend if options will protect certain areas. So right now I'm basically saying in the underlying layer, protect all the white areas. So I can actually move this in. If I press Alt or Option on that paddle there, that'll split it so that it can feather that into place. So that's one way we can protect it. We can also do that on the black side. And that's actually going to help us here because it's going to bring back the underlying black areas underneath that mask that we just created. So basically those trees up there, if I bring this over, you can see how those trees are now not being affected by the mask that we created there. So we have to press Alt or Option and that will split it so we can feather it. So I'm going to feather that all the way over. Now we press OK. So now what did that do? Well, if we look at our before and after, it allowed some of the white areas to pop through, and it also allowed some of those black areas to pop through. So we protected those, but we still have that very nicely painted atmospheric effect. So I can drop that down just a little bit on the opacity side, and now that we have this very nice painted effect for our background that if you didn't know it, you probably wouldn't even realize it, but it does help to push that background back, because right now our background is competing with our foreground, but now it's pushing that background back and creating an element to this photograph that you wouldn't normally see if you just were to look at it for face value. All right, so I just wanted to thank you for watching this. My name is Blake Rudis with Everyday HDR and HDRinsider.com. If you like this, please share it, comment on it. I'm sure somebody else wants to see this. Now, I use Topaz Impression for this, but as I said before, you can use maybe some of the filter options that are right within Photoshop to achieve pretty much the same thing. There are many ways to do the same thing. This is just one way that you can achieve this process. Thanks again.